Have you ever just, stopped and thought about existence itself? Like how things that seem totally opposite, light, dark, creation, destruction, how they might actually fit together, or how these really ancient, kind of mysterious ideas can pop up again, even today.
It's pretty fascinating when you see those echoes.
Yeah. So we just finished our big look at Mythological Tales, the Universe Part 1.
Yeah.
We followed Galaxy, Yin Yang, and that amazing tree, Abraxas, right in their garden.
Right.
And this whole series, this deep dive,
Yeah.
is all about digging into the real-world myths, the religions, the cosmologies that actually inspired parts of that story.
Unpacking the layers behind the fiction.
Exactly. And today we're focusing on maybe the most central, most enigmatic figure from that story, Abraxas. Fictional in our tale, sure, but the real Abraxas, it has this incredibly rich ancient history behind it.
It really does. A deep rabbit hole.
Totally. So for this, we've grabbed the basics from places like Wikipedia, foundational stuff. But for some really unique modern takes, personal insights even, we looked at the work of YouTube user Galahad Eridanus.
Right. His interpretation's at a whole other dimension.
Definitely.
So our mission today really is to try and peel back those layers. Look at Abraxas's, well, its true nature, or at least how it's been seen.
Where did it come from?
Yeah, its origins, how people understood it differently over time, and how it still shows up, even in pop culture today.
Right.
Hopefully we can pull out some surprising facts, some key ideas that give you a fresh way to think about this really profound symbol.
Okay, sounds great. So let's dive in. Back to the ancient world. What was Abraxas to the first people who believed in it? Where does this name even come from?
Well, the story really kicks off with Gnosticism. According to Wikipedia, Abraxas is, first off, this mystical word from Gnostic thought.
Okay.
It's very strongly linked to the system of Basilides, a Gnostic teacher. In his view, Abraxas was the great archon.
Archon, like a ruler.
Yeah, sort of a powerful ruler, maybe a lesser deity in the grand cosmic scheme, who presided over 365 spheres or heavens.
365. Okay, that number sounds familiar.
Exactly, and this is where it gets really interesting numerologically. The Greek letters in the original spelling, alpha, beta, rho, alpha, sigma, alpha, xi, they add up precisely to 365.
Wow. So the number itself was key.
Absolutely key. It wasn't random. It ties Abraxas directly to time, to cycles, the days in a year. And that connection, surprisingly, echoes even in modern ideas about it.
And how did they picture this being? Was there an image?
Oh, yes. We find Abraxas on these ancient gemstones. People call them Abraxas stones. They were used like amulets for protection or magic.
Right.
And interestingly, on those stones, the spelling is often Abraxas with an S. The Abraxas with an X probably came later, maybe a mix-up when moving from Greek to Latin letters.
Oh, okay. So what did it look like on these amulets?
Well, the most common image is pretty striking. It's known as the anguipede.
Angopede. Snakefoot.
Basically, yeah. Picture this. It's got the head of a rooster or cock.
Okay.
The body of a man.
Right.
And instead of legs, it has two serpents, sometimes ending in scorpions.
Whoa. Okay, that's quite a combination. Rooster head, human body, snake, scorpion legs. What did that all mean?
It's a real hybrid, isn't it? It was seen as a pampeus, like an all-god. The rooster head might symbolize vigilance or foresight, maybe the dawn. The human body, well, humanity. And the serpent legs.
Yeah.
Primal forces, cycles, maybe duality.
So it's bringing all these different aspects together in one figure.
Exactly. It embodied this synthesis of existence. It's the kind of image that just makes you ask questions, right?
Definitely. And it sounds like even back then, Abraxas wasn't just one simple thing. You mentioned Basilides, but how else was it seen in the different Gnostic circles? Was it always this archon?
No, not at all. That's what's so fascinating. Its identity was really fluid. So yes, in Irenaeus' system, it was an archon, a ruler who came from this complex chain of emanations that made the 365 heavens. But then you look at accounts from others, like Epiphanius or Jerome, and they talk about Abraxas as a god, maybe even the first principle. Sometimes they even said it gave birth to mind and inspired the whole creation of the world in those heavens.
So from a ruler within creation to potentially the source of creation.
Exactly. And then if you go to the primary Gnostic texts themselves, like the holy book of the great invisible spirit found at Nag Hammadi.
Right, the actual source text.
There, Abraxas is described as an eon, like a divine spark or emanation living with Sophia wisdom right at the edge of the pleroma, the fullness of the divine realm.
On the boundary.
Yeah, right where the divine meets, well, ignorance or the material world. Its role there is interacting to sort of fix things in the material realm. So you see this progression. Ruler, creator, cosmic entity on the edge.
That's a huge range.
Yeah.
But then things shifted. You mentioned the church.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate turn. As Christianity became more dominant, the Catholic Church started labeling Abraxas as a pagan god. And eventually, much later, like in J. Colin de Plancy's Infernal Dictionary from 1818, it gets branded straight up as a demon.
Wow, quite the fall from grace, from potential first principle to demon.
It really is
Yeah.
a dramatic recategorization.
So given its power and symbolism, did people actually use Abraxas in like magical practices? Was it invoked?
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't just theoretical. Abraxas shows up quite a bit in the Greek magical papyri.
Ah, the practical magic texts from ancient Egypt.
Exactly. And in those, it gets identified with all sorts of other deities, Thoth, Hermes, Osiris, showing how these ideas blended together.
Syncretism in action.
Right. And there's this one amazing papyrus, sometimes called the Monad or the Eighth Book of Moses, that has this incredible creation myth. It says Abraxas is the supreme creator who brings everything into being, the Ogdode, those primordial 8 beings, plus time, plus the soul, through laughter.
Through laughter.
Seriously. His first laugh created light. His second split the waters. It goes on like that, 7 laughs in total, and the 7th, the final one, created the soul.
That's actually beautiful. Creation through divine joy or something.
It really puts Abraxas at the absolute heart of creation in that particular magical view, an active creative force.
Incredible. Okay, so that's the ancient world. But you mentioned this figure still resonates today, even sparking personal mystical experiences. Tell me about this YouTube user, Galahad Eridanus.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting in a modern context. So Galahad Eridanus, back in 2020, apparently encountered the image of Abraxas and had this really profound connection, almost like a mystical download.
Wow.
And this experience led him to create what he calls a cosmogram, basically a diagram mapping out his understanding of Abraxas's place in the whole scheme of existence.
So what's his take? How does he see Abraxas?
He interprets Abraxas primarily as a time god and a spirit of transition.
Transition, okay.
And he makes this really compelling comparison to Janus, the Roman god of doorways, beginnings, ends, thresholds.
Right, the two-faced god looking forward and backward.
Exactly. Both figures embody this idea of unity within duality. Janus has his 2 faces. Abraxas has those 2 snake legs, often depicted with heads, and then its main head above. It points to this synthesis of opposites being right on the border in that liminal space.
That idea of hybridity signifying transition that clicks. It reminds me of like centaurs in mythology, not quite human, not quite horse,
Yeah.
existing between categories. Or even on old maps where they draw strange hybrid creatures at the edge of the world to mark those unknown transition zones.
Yeah.
That mix often signals a crossing point, doesn't it?
Precisely. It marks a threshold. And Galahad doubles down on this time connection with the numerology again, but from his angle.
The 365?
Yeah. He points out the name has 7 letters summing to 365. He links this to the 7th day of the week, the last day, the 365th day of the year, the last day, and Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac.
Wait, Pisces, isn't that February, March? How's that the last sign?
Ah, good question. Traditionally, the astrological year starts with Aries at the vernal equinox, around March 21st. So, Pisces, coming just before that, is considered the end of the old cycle.
Ah, I see. So zodiacally, it's the final step before the new beginning.
Exactly. So for Galahad, Abraxas's Pisces stands right at that critical crossing point between the old cycle and the new one, like a guardian of that threshold.
Very much like Janus, then. That's a fascinating blend of ancient number symbolism and modern interpretation now. You can't really talk about deep psychological or mystical interpretations in the 20th century without bumping into Carl Jung, right? Did he have anything to say about Abraxas?
Oh, absolutely. Jung engaged with Abraxas very deeply, actually. It was central to his 1916 work, The 7 Sermons to the Dead.
7 Sermons. Wasn't that the one he didn't publish under his own name initially?
That's right. He attributed it to Basilides of Alexandria, the ancient Gnostic teacher we mentioned earlier, almost like it was channeled through him or from that ancient source.
Okay, so what was Jung's view via Basilides?
Jung saw Abraxas as this ultimate god figure that encompasses all opposites. Not just good and evil, but everything. He calls it love and love's murder, the saint and his betrayer, light and darkness, even God and devil combined.
Whoa. So not picking sides, but containing both sides.
Exactly. For Jung, Abraxas was the pleroma, that totality of being, A terrifying concept in some ways because it holds everything, the beautiful and the terrible, but it's also the driving force behind what he called individuation.
Individuation. That's the process of becoming a whole integrated self, right?
Yeah.
Integrating all those disparate parts, even the shadow.
Precisely. Abraxas represents that ultimate wholeness, the reconciliation of all those inner opposites. Jung even tied this into his astrological ideas later in his book Aeon, suggesting the age of Pisces, our departing age, was defined by the conflict between Christ and Antichrist, the two fish of Pisces swimming opposite ways needing reconciliation.
That alignment is powerful. Jung felt it was channeled. Galahad had his own direct experience. But then you mentioned Rudolf Steiner, another major figure, but maybe less known than Jung. How does he fit in?
Okay, so this is where the synchronicities get really striking. Rudolf Steiner, around the same time as Jung actually, maybe a bit earlier, developed his own distinct spiritual philosophy. And central to it is this idea of a cosmic triad.
A cosmic triad.
Yeah. Steiner believed humanity is caught between two opposing forces, two forms of, well, evil isn't quite the right word, maybe deviation. He called them Lucifer and Ahriman.
Lucifer and Ahriman. Okay, what do they represent?
Lucifer represents forces pulling us towards excessive light, ego, spiritual pride, freedom without responsibility, kind of escaping the earth. Ahriman represents the opposite pull towards darkness, materialism, rigid dogma, restriction, getting totally stuck in the earth.
So two extremes pulling us off balance.
Exactly. And for Steiner, the balancing force, the ideal path right between them is Christ. Christ represents love, balance, true spiritual development integrated with earthly life.
Okay, Lucifer, Ahriman, Christ in the middle. Got it. How does this connect back to Galahad and Abraxas?
Okay, get this. Galahad developed his cosmogram in 2020, seemingly unaware of the specific Steiner model. But look at his drawing. Abraxas' right foot, the serpent from the Tree of Knowledge, he interprets as representing freedom, maybe that Luciferic impulse towards unbridled intellect.
Right.
The left foot, which he links to the Gnostic demiurge, represents restriction, the limitations of the material world, kind of like Ahriman, and the cruciform halo around Abraxas' head. Galahad explicitly intended that to represent Christ as the third highest force, reconciling these two lower opposites.
Wait, so Galahad's independent vision from 2020, with the two opposing feet and Christ above, perfectly mirrors Steiner's Lucifer, Ahriman, Christ triad from a century earlier.
Exactly. It's an uncanny alignment, developed completely independently. It really makes you wonder about these underlying patterns or archetypes emerging.
That is genuinely startling. And you mentioned synchronicities plural. What about Aleister Crowley? His name often comes up in these esoteric contexts. How does his experience compare to Galahad's?
Right. Another layer of compelling parallels, though, with a crucial difference. Think about Crowley's famous experience in 1904. He performs the Bornless ritual in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid.
Okay.
And then receives the dictation of the Book of the Law from a being called Aiwass, announcing the start of the Aeon of Horus.
Right, a major event in modern occultism.
Now compare that to Galahad's Contact 2020 experience. Both involve texts seemingly dictated by superhuman intelligences. Both have these weird synchronistic links to the Great Pyramid. Galahad found connections to the number 666 in its dimensions, just as Crowley did in his own system. Both involve bird-headed entities, Horus for Crowley, Abraxas with its cock's head for Galahad. Both announce the dawning of a new age, or Eon Horus for Crowley, Aquarius for Galahad.
Okay, the parallels are definitely there.
Oh, and there's even a cup-bearing woman figure in both narratives. Crowley has Babylon, Galahad has a figure named Zell.
Wow. But you mentioned a key difference.
Yes, and it's fundamental. Galahad actually sees his 2020 experience as a response to Crowley's 1904 event. But where Crowley's system, based on the Book of the Law, is often interpreted as anti-Christian or post-Christian.
Do what thou wilt.
Right. Galahad's interpretation and system are explicitly pro-Christian, aiming to integrate Christ back into the picture, as we saw with the Steiner alignment. So similar structures, similar archetypes maybe, but radically different conclusions and perspectives.
Fascinating. It's like the same symbols are being engaged with, but interpreted through very different lenses.
Exactly. And just to add one more little piece to this puzzle of recurring patterns, Galahad later found this image called the Corvid Cosmogram. Someone else made it years before his own experience, yet it looks uncannily similar to his depiction of Abraxas.
Nope.
Yeah. It just reinforces this idea that maybe these aren't just individual visions, but shared, underlying archetypal patterns bubbling up independently in different minds.
That's a lot to think about. It really underscores how these symbols seem to have a life of their own.
It truly does. It suggests we might all be tapping into some deeper layer of reality or collective consciousness.
Okay, so we've gone from ancient Gnostics to these really profound, quite complex, modern mystical experiences. An incredible journey for Abraxas as a symbol, but it hasn't just stayed in those esoteric circles, has it? Let's broaden out now. Where else do we see Abraxas popping up in, our wider culture?
Right. It's definitely seeped into the broader cultural consciousness, especially in literature and, more recently, other media. It's left its mark over centuries.
Like where, for instance?
Well, way back, Thomas More's Utopia from 1516 mentions that the island was originally called Abraxa. A little nod, perhaps.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Then, as we mentioned, Colin de Plancy's Dictionnaire Infernal in 1818 really cemented that Anguipede image, but crucially, also locked in its reputation as a demon for popular occultism and fiction writers. That had a huge influence.
So he kind of popularized the darker side.
In many ways, yes. Then you have Salman Rushdie in Midnight's Children from 1981, making a direct link between the magic word abracadabra and Abraxas, calling it the supreme Gnostic god tied to 365 and emanating spirits.
Connecting the magic word back to the god. Makes sense.
And perhaps the most famous literary appearance is in Hermann Hesse's Demian from 1919.
Ah, yes. That's a big one for Abraxas. How does Hesse portray it?
Hesse depicts Apsis as this pivotal, almost guiding deity. It's the god you fly towards, the one that unites the godly and devilish elements. It accepts all thoughts, all dreams, no matter how contradictory.
So very much that Jungian idea of embracing the opposites.
Exactly, but interestingly, Hesse also says, Abraxas leaves you when you become blameless and normal. It suggests this god thrives in the complexity, the struggle, the ambiguity of human experience, not in simple purity.
That's a powerful take. Any others in literature?
James Branch Kibble's novel Jürgen, also from 1919 actually, features this ultimate cosmic being, Cochet the Deathless, who says he's known by many names, including Abraxas, reinforcing that idea of it being this all-encompassing, maybe unknowable force.
So woven into some really significant books over the last century or so. What about more recently? Is it still showing up today?
It is, yeah. It keeps appearing, often tapping into that ancient, mysterious, slightly dangerous vibe. For example, there was a folk horror video game in 2022 called The Excavation of Hobbs Barrow.
Okay.
And Abraxas features in it as this long-dormant god or demon, very much drawing on the Gnostic mythology.
So game developers are mining Gnosticism now. Interesting.
And just last year, 2023, a horror movie called Late Night with the Devil came out. It featured a fictional cult that worshipped Abraxas.
Ah, okay. So the demon angle, or the dark cult angle, is still very much alive in horror.
It seems to be a potent symbol for that genre, tapping into ancient power and forbidden knowledge. These recent examples show it's still got symbolic pull for storytellers today.
So looking at all this, wow, from this obscure Gnostic entity, this archon, this creator figure, this time god, to a Jungian symbol of wholeness, a Steiner-esque balance point, a Crowleyan parallel, and now a figure in horror games and movies. What does this mean? Why are we still fascinated by this figure that embodies transition, unites opposites, represents these cosmic mysteries? What's the enduring appeal?
I think it shows that certain really deep archetypal ideas just don't go away. They resonate because they touch on fundamental aspects of being human, right? Abraxas and all these different guises seems to be one way we try to grapple with the sheer complexity of reality.
The fact that things aren't simple black and white?
Exactly. It represents that uncomfortable but maybe also liberating idea that everything, even the contradictions, can exist together within one big picture. It's a symbol for the container of everything, the synthesis of all those forces pulling in different directions.
So it kind of invites us to look past easy answers.
Yeah, to look beyond simple good devil, light dark, and embrace the messy, complicated wholeness of it all, both within the world and maybe within ourselves.
What a journey we've covered then. Seriously, from a name on ancient amulets, a Gnostic principle tied to 365 heavens, to this powerful symbol picked up by mystics, by Jung, by Steiner, by storytellers, it's incredible.
It really shows how Abraxas, however you interpret it, keeps challenging us, doesn't it? To see the hidden links between things we normally keep separate, good and evil, creation, destruction, past, future, it's all somehow bound up in this one complex figure.
So, if Abraxas really is this spirit of transition, this symbol of holding opposites, What does the fact that it keeps showing up, keep evolving in our stories, our symbols, tell us about our own human journey? You know, that constant movement between beginnings and ends, between chaos and maybe finding some new order. And maybe, just maybe, trying to understand a figure this complex. Could it actually help you, the listener, navigate the transitions, the ambiguities, the paradoxes in your own life? Something to think about.